What is up, true crimers, and welcome back. Happy Monday. It is time to explore the unsolved disappearance of Jessie Farber. So I actually spent a few days researching this case in depth and detail because there's not much available about this case, and there are a lot of unanswered questions here. I really was left with a lot of questions myself. I don't fully understand what happened here, but let me backtrack and bring you through what I know so far. I'm also going to try to do this in the 3 minutes that I get, but it's possible that I may have to make a part 2 because I want to cover this as best as I can. So Jesse was also known as Jesse Rex, and he was actually a father. He had a lot of friends, and he was known as being a really devoted father. He had a girlfriend by the name of Rachel, who was the mother to his children. So on the day that he disappeared, there are a lot of sketchy things that happened, in my opinion. So to start, on the day that he disappeared, he actually is said to have gotten into an argument with Rachel over money, but it's not specified exactly what was going on there. Also, on the day he disappeared, there was a person by the name of Karina, whom he was supposedly friends with, who allegedly stole money from him, and this actually really set him into a bad mood. It's not known why or how Karina stole this money from him, but Jesse had actually reached out to Karina's boyfriend, Kyle, and asked for the money to be returned. It looks like Kyle was going to comply, but he ended up not getting his money back. So also on the day that he disappeared, he had been making frequent phone calls to his bank. I thought that was so strange, and I think it's very possible that maybe Karina's boyfriend was saying that he was going to send back the money, and that's why he was calling to check the balance multiple times, but that did come up on the phone records. Also, allegedly, on the day that he disappeared, he had tried to buy an illegal substance. Allegedly. So basically what happened was he phoned Rachel late on the day that he disappeared and said that he was being chased by a pack of coyotes. So he knew the area where he lived, Tamaqua, Pennsylvania, like the back of his hand. According to Rachel, he phoned her late that evening and went back and forth between being at Tamaqua Elementary School and Tamaqua High School. I don't know about you, but for somebody that knew the area very well, he would know where he was. That's super sketchy to me that she said that. According to Rachel, during this phone call, she said that Jesse sounded really frantic, but also the background was silent. For anyone that knows coyotes, they make a very high-pitched squealing sound, so somebody being chased by a pack of coyotes likely would have a lot of noise in the background. So again, I found that super sketchy and super off. I just think there's something part of that story that's not really coming to light yet or not being fully told. I'm running out of time, so I need to do a part 2. Hello, true crimers, and welcome back. Can you imagine going missing from your very own home and your case remains unsolved for over 30 years? Let's explore the disappearance of Annie Laurie Heron. So Annie Laurie Heron was 72 years old. She was married to her husband for over 48 years. Her husband was Robert Heron Sr. He was very wealthy. He was a businessman. He dealt with a lot of different people, and unfortunately, sometimes these business deals did go wrong, and they unfortunately also did sometimes result in him making unwanted enemies. For the most part, the couple was really well liked. They had a lot of friends. They were very social. They had a lot of money. They had a lot going for themselves, and they were also really well known in town. On the day of July 26, 1988, Annie actually had some friends over for a bridge club type of scenario, and she also had her housekeeper there. Unfortunately, everybody left at one point, and Annie was left behind, and she was waiting for her husband to return home from work. Her husband said he got home and found the house completely empty and silent. He didn't understand what was going on, and Annie was supposed to be there and she wasn't. He actually saw a little bit of splattered blood on the door, and that's when he grew alarmed and phoned the police. Her friends and family had no idea where she was. The police thought that this was an abduction, and they were so right. Very soon after the police arrived, they actually ended up finding a ransom note, and it basically asked Robert to pay out to 12 different companies that he had actually just sued not very long ago. And this was to be Annie's ransom, and supposedly she would be let free. Now, Robert wasn't sure what to make of this, but he ended up paying about a sum of $1 million in order for his wife to be set free. However, his wife was never set free. In fact, a few days later, he actually got a letter from her postmarked from Georgia, and they lived in Mississippi. The letter basically read something along the lines of Annie begging her husband to comply with the demands, saying that if he did not comply, she was going to be entombed, or AKA sealed up in a wall in the cellar of a house and only given a few jugs of water. Annie also suffered from some illnesses, and she needed specific medication, and if she did not get these medication within days, it would be fatal. Her husband complied with everything, and Annie was never set free. They actually ended up finding out that one of the business owners that was in that lawsuit was the kidnapper, but he refused to tell anyone where Annie was. He served his prison sentence, but to date, 30 years later, Annie still has never been found, nor has her body, and her husband actually ended up passing away. She was declared legally dead in 1990.
Every time you look at me like that, every time you touch on me like that, tell me what you need and I'll give it to you. Tell me what you need and I'll give it to you. Every time you look at me like that, every time you touch on me like that, tell me what you need and I'll give it to you. Tell me what you need and I'll give it to you. I just want your love, don't need nobody, nobody but us. Let's get lost tonight, just your body on mine. I just want your love, don't need nobody, nobody but us. Let's get lost tonight, just your body on mine. Did I let you know your lips taste just like heaven? Oh, nobody else but you that's on my mind. Every time you look at me like that, every time you touch on me like that, tell me what you need and I'll give it to you. Tell me what you need and I'll give it to you. Every time you look at me like that, every time you touch on me like that, tell me what you need and I'll give it to you. Tell me what you need and I'll give it to you. Every time you look at me.
This is Dulce Maria Alves. She has been missing since September 16th of 2019. She was just 5 years old when she went missing from a park in Bridgeton, New Jersey. This is an age-progressed photograph of her. She is 8 years old now. Dulce was last seen at the Bridgeton City Park behind Bridgeton High School in Bridgeton, New Jersey. Her mother, Noema Alves Perez, had gone to the park with Dulce's 3-year-old brother, Manuel, and Noema's 8-year-old sister. They arrived at the park shortly after 4 p.m. Noema and her sister remained in the car while Dulce and Manuel played on the playground. They estimate about 30 yards away from the vehicle. Noema was helping her sister with her homework when Manuel ran up to the vehicle crying. This was around 4:20 p.m. She asked him where Dulce was. He pointed at the spot where he last saw her. He said she'd run towards some red maintenance sheds adjacent to the playground. However, Dulce was never heard from again. After a search of the surrounding area, Noema called the police at 4:51 p.m. After interviewing witnesses at the park, police got a description of a suspect in her disappearance. He is described as a light-skinned man, possibly Hispanic, around 5'6" to 5'8" tall, with a thin build. He had acne on his chin. He was wearing a black shirt, red pants, and orange sneakers, possibly Nike. These witnesses say that he put Dulce into a red van with a sliding door and tinted windows and left the park with her. This is the sketch of the man that authorities have released, but they've identified him as a possible witness in her case rather than a suspect or a person of interest. At the time of Dulce's disappearance, she and her younger brother Manuel lived with her maternal grandparents. Noema was a teen mom and had Dulce when she was just 14 years old. She shared joint custody of her and Manuel with her parents. Dulce's father lives in Mexico and hadn't been a part of her life since he moved to Mexico when she was 3 years old. Her father, her mother, nor any other members of Dulce's family have been named as suspects in her disappearance. Authorities believe that Dulce may have been abducted by an opportunistic predator at the park. At the time of her disappearance, she was about 3 feet 5 inches tall and about 60 to 70 pounds, a Hispanic female with black hair and brown eyes. If you have any information about her disappearance or her whereabouts, please call the Bridgeton Police Department at 856-451-0033 or the FBI at 800-225-5324.